Let's talk about Ukraine. There was no deal on day one as promised by Donald Trump on the campaign trail. Instead, the slog of Russia's full-scale invasion of the country is about to mark its third anniversary, with the daily dose of overnight strikes on civilian targets, like, for instance, in the second city, Kharkiv, where there were 4 injured in the night of Monday to Tuesday. Incremental advances as well by Moscow's forces, which claim to have taken the village of Dmytro, that's in the same Kharkiv region. Now with us, he served as Ukraine's foreign minister for 4 years till last September, and now at the ripe old age of 43, it's back to school for Dmytro Kuleba, adjunct professor at the French Political Science Institute, Sciences Po, where you are teaching wartime diplomacy to master's students. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me again.
When you've endured the invasion of Vladimir Putin's forces, how's your patience level for those who say they want to hand in their term paper late?
Well, as a diplomat, you get trained over years to tolerate people. So, when you are in a war, you have to remain firm while actually tolerating, but also confronting people. So it's not easy, but this is what war teaches you to do.
All right, and it works as well in the classroom. I want to ask you, with Trump said at some point to speak with Vladimir Putin, Europe's leaders are clearly nervous. The latest example, the German Chancellor speaking earlier this Tuesday in Berlin in the company of his Danish counterpart.
We will support Ukraine in defending its sovereignty and freedom, as long as it takes. We agree with our partners in Washington that this war must end, but this cannot be a dictated peace.
Dmytro Kuleba, how do those words ring to you?
All the good words. The war must end. Ukraine couldn't agree more. Peace should be just and lasting. Makes perfect sense. The question is, what do we mean when we say just and lasting peace? And this is where differences will emerge from the.
Do you believe Olaf Scholz when he says that Germany will stand by Ukraine till the end?
I do, but the question again is in details. What exactly standing by Ukraine means? So far, Germany has become the second largest provider of military assistance to Ukraine, following the United States. But we all understand that as the war continues, more needs to be done. And the fundamental question here is, will Europe be able to compensate if the United States suspend their assistance for months to come? We know that Europe has the capacity, has the resources to do so, but does it have a political will to do more than it is already doing? This is the real question that needs to be addressed in the coming weeks and months.
Where does that political will come from? We're in a bit of a strange time. We have a weak French government. We have snap elections coming up in Germany. Italy's prime minister has the ear of Donald Trump. She's pro-Ukraine, but she's also from the far right. Who's in charge?
This is the question that is most often addressed to Europe without an answer. Who is in charge in Europe?
Because if you suddenly need to do what you say, ratchet up the defense spending, who's going to make the call?
Politicians, in my view, in the European Union, should not be afraid of telling their voters the truth, that if we do not help Ukraine, the war will come to our cities. The biggest mistake that people are making these days is believing that it will not happen to them, that it's just Ukraine who is suffering, but Putin will never dare to disturb the beauty of European cities. He will, if he wins in Ukraine. And this is the sad reality that politicians should not be afraid of speaking about. And you can already hear German intelligence and German Ministry of Defense warning that by 2028, Russia will be capable of directly confronting NATO. We are only 3 years away from that date. So I think a bit of honesty in politicians when they talk to their voters can generate a favorable environment for the political will to step up support to Ukraine to emerge.
How do you read Donald Trump in the 8 days since he's now been sworn in for a second term? His pronouncements have been more pointed against Vladimir Putin, it seems, but will that last?
I believe we should not be overly excited about his negative words or comments addressed to President Putin, because there is not a single guarantee that the day after he will not say something similar against President Zelensky or Ukraine in general. He wants the deal, he wants to end the war. To me, he seems to have realized that it's far more complicated than he initially thought, and it will take much more time and much more effort to achieve the result. This is why we're not hearing about 24 hours anymore. I do not believe that peace will be established in 3 months or in 100 days, as it was suggested by his special representative. So what he's trying to do now is to test the ground of how responsive the belligerent parties are to his threats, but also to his incentives. And what you hear today is basically constructive messages coming from both Kyiv and Moscow saying that we are ready to talk. But it shouldn't be delusional. It shouldn't mislead in understanding that there is a gap, huge gap, between expressing constructive attitude towards towards negotiations, and actually engaging in negotiations.
All right, concrete actions. Well, what Donald Trump has done so far is nominate staff members. And there could be reasons to be upbeat if you're Ukrainian. General Kellogg is somebody with both feet on the ground. He's the point man on Ukraine. But there's also a man by the name of Michael Duffy, the nominee to be Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, Procurement. And he's the one who back in 2019 was insisting that aid to Ukraine, military aid, be cut off if they didn't deliver the dirt on Hunter Biden's son. Your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, in this administration, everyone will follow what Trump thinks. Biden was listening to what the system was telling him. Trump, today, the system will listen to what Trump is going to tell them. And if President Trump decides that he wants to deliver more military aid to Ukraine, people like the gentleman you just mentioned will execute the order of their president. We should be absolutely clear about that. I have no illusions about some anti-Ukrainian elements in Trump's circle. But in the end, in this administration, it will be President Trump who will be making decisions, and others will follow whatever they think, whether they like.
So
Ukraine
you're indifferent, for instance, when he names a television personality host, Pete Hegseth, to be his defense secretary.
I think it's the people of America who have to decide whether they want to be indifferent or not. I know that if you want the United States not to be on your side, you have to have Trump on your side, and everyone else will align.
And how's President Zelensky doing on that front?
Well, so far we heard that Trump saying that it seems to him Zelensky wants peace, and he's waiting for a message from Moscow whether Moscow wants peace. So Zelensky has adopted the only viable strategy to be constructive, to show willingness to engage with Trump, to praise him. And let's see how long, how this strategy will deliver. But he could not do anything differently, because he knows Trump. We all know Trump, and he's trying his best. But time will show how it will all play out.
We're heading again towards that third anniversary of the all-out invasion. What are the options now for Ukraine? Do you, for instance, lower the age of conscription from 27 to 25?
This is not the idea that was born in Ukraine. This is the idea that was born in the United States, first and foremost, even before this administration came to power. In my view, it's a big mistake, because the Russian narrative is that the West is fighting against Russia with Ukrainian hands until the last Ukrainian. So the demand to lower the mobilization age plays perfectly in that Russian narrative. Second, the age of mobilization is not the decisive factor in this war. And those who make this point, they use it as an excuse for their own inaction. So basically, the point they're making is that we do not owe anything to Ukraine because Ukraine is not lowering mobilization age. This is the line they are building. But it's a manipulation that is obvious to anyone. You need weapons to fight against the enemy.
One final question for you. With your students, you know, there's two schools of thought when it comes to how history is made. Big powers and also individuals, right, that somehow change the course of history. Crossing the Rubicon is the expression. From your 4 years as foreign minister, was there a moment when things could have gone either way and they went one way instead of another because of an individual decision?
Endless amount of such cases, and I will be sharing these cases with these students because I want them to understand that while the war...
Give us one.
Well, one prime minister convened a meeting of his government to decide on whether to provide Ukraine with a certain type of weapon. And his entire government was against it, saying that they need this weapon themselves. And he asked them a simple question. Are we under attack? Do we realize that if Ukraine fails, we will be under attack? Give them the weapons and start producing the new ones for ourselves. And his government followed his instruction. And that was the position of one person changing history.
And that person was? Who was that person?
A prime minister, not a president. But I know other cases as well when in some countries the system opposed the decision of the leader to the extent that he had to step back and that country did not do what it had to do for Ukraine. It did it like half a year later, but precious time was lost.
Dmytro Kuleba, many thanks, and we hope to see you more often here in Paris.
Thank you for having me.
Stay with us, there's much more to come, more news, plus the day's business and sports.